Ms. Jones, I guess thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
No problem.
If you could take us through your story in sort of a capsule form, just how you met R. Kelly and what happened in your experience with him.
Well, I've been speaking out about this since the fall of 2017. I was a local DJ here at 97.9 for about 5.5 years. I had hosted an after party for a concert that he had done, and we met that way. And I thought, you know, I was being groomed to be in an adult, mature relationship, and I didn't anticipate, you know, the things that ended up happening over the 2-year period that I lived with him.
Mm-hmm. And those things that happened, were they similar to what we've heard about with other women?
Absolutely. Of course, this one of the things that stands apart is, of course, I wasn't underage, but mm-hmm. I certainly dealt with a lot of physical, emotional abuse, sexually, things that I had never done or wanted to do, mm-hmm. Humiliating things, you know.
Is there anything that people might really relate to, if you can think of one example of when he was especially either humiliating or physically abusive?
I pause because, you know, it feels like it's in real time for me every time I describe, mm-hmm. you know, the first time or the last time. But what people saw on that interview with him elevating his voice, it was triggering for me because, you know, those are the beginning stages of him getting worked up mm-hmm. before the abuse.
Mm-hmm. What would the abuse involve? Was it, you know, he would just get angry about something and then start hitting you, or
yeah.
throwing things, or how would you?
No, not throwing things. Slapping me, kicking me, beating me. And I share this a lot of times, but the worst and the most memorable was when I confronted him about the tape, you know, the one that he was acquitted for. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I forgave him. I was fresh, you know, living with him. We had dated 5 months. I was at the house at least about 3 weeks when the first incident occurred. And I forgave him and I stayed. And much like, you know, people see the 2 girlfriends protecting him and defending, I was the same way. I didn't want anybody to tell me anything negative about him. Although I had witnessed things and things were even happening to me, I wasn't going to let someone take that away from me. I felt invested. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I can certainly see where they probably feel it's us against them now.
How far into the relationship did the abuse or humiliation start?
Yeah, about 3 weeks into me living there.
Was
mm-hmm.
it here, or was it always somewhere else?
No, I lived in Dallas,
mm-hmm.
and then he courted me for about 5 months, mm-hmm. and then I quit my job at 97.9 and mm-hmm. got rid of all my personal belongings, and then I moved to Chicago, so that's mm-hmm. where it took place.
Are you interested, or have you tried to get your case turned into a criminal investigation?
Well, I did hire an attorney mm-hmm. Summer of 2017. Mm-hmm. She checked, you know, what can I do here? You know, when I got enough courage to speak out and talk about what happened to me, I produced photos, you know, of my abuse, my weight loss, because a part of my abuse was being starved. Mm-hmm. You know, 25 pounds, 27 pounds, somewhere in that, you know, range, but I was very thin, you know, from being punished with no food. So I produced those photos, text messages of me asking for food, asking to go to the restroom. My statute of limitations had ran out, unfortunately. We checked Texas, Chicago. and my time had ran out. But for people that are underage, they don't have a statute of limitations in some states, so they can still file their charges. That's why you see people from the 90s saying, well, I'm going to say, file charges, but because I was a grown woman, there's nothing I can do about it if it's past 3 or 4 years. So,
you talk about forced starvation. How did that happen?
Well, if you're in trouble with him, for whatever reason, I'm not gonna say you're in trouble. I'm just gonna speak on me because some girls maybe didn't experience that. They flew in and flew out, and they had the luxury of going home. But for me in particular, there would be days where he would instruct his runners to not go get the food that, I would put my order in, and, I would wonder why they're not responding back to me. And it was, he would come in the room maybe 2 days later or whatever and say, do you know what you did?
So he used it as a form of punishment.
Right, right.
And why would he be punishing you? He didn't like your...
There were many incidents. Talking to people that I weren't supposed to talk to, maybe wearing an outfit that I wasn't supposed to wear, getting my nails and toes done. You can't have a guy working on your pedicure or your manicure. So if I got busted, instead of a woman doing my manicure and pedicure, and it got back to him, I'm in trouble. So you either take the beating or the starving,
And so you touched on this, but when you saw him the last 2 days on CBS this morning in those interviews with Gayle King, how did that affect you emotionally?
I did cry yesterday. It was a hard time for me because I've never seen him, take it up a notch like that in public for people. You know what I mean? So it screamed desperation. I know his back is up against the wall because he's lost everything. And it's out in the open what you've done to other people.
But we got a chance to see the side of him that you saw during your relationship.
Right. And I felt validated in a lot of ways. But also, like I said, I felt sad for him because, again, this is somebody that I fell in love with. And I was able to see a piece of that.
Right. How long did the relationship go on for?
About 2.5 years.
And what was the breaking point?
The breaking point was about 3 to 4 months before I actually left, but I just got tired of, the abuse, just collectively, just everything. It was a hard time.
Did he take it okay?
The leaving? He didn't know that I was leaving when I left. I was supposed to come back. It was a round trip. But I did run into him again about a month and a half later, and I've talked about this in the press too over the last 2 years, but he did choke me on his tour bus when he came back to Dallas. And I had met up with him under the pretense that I was getting some of my belongings back, and it didn't end well.
What do you want to see happen to him?
I want to see him pay for his crimes. It has nothing to do with what he's done to me, but I know he's hurt a lot of people way before me. And I hate that it's gotten to this point because there have been people that could have, helped him years ago that's known about this, but he definitely has to pay for his crimes. Jail time, therapy,